Hello, my name's Sammy, aka Four String Boy, and this is my brand new series of Fingerstyle First-days. Essentially, a fingerstyle series aimed at fingerstyle beginners or anybody who's just looking for original pieces to just relax and learn with. Now, all these pieces are in difficulty order. So this is piece number 2. So there is piece number 1. If you've missed that, please go back and check that out if you'd like to before. But this is piece number 2, so it'll be a little bit more difficult than last time. In this video, I'm going to teach you the entire piece, but if you'd prefer to have the tab or a sheet to read from, then you can purchase my brand new book, Fingerstyle First-days. It has all 10 pieces tabbed out with all the chord boxes, the score, everything for you there, and that's available from my website. Link in the comments down below. And as always, the initial playthrough has a little bit of backing just because I enjoy composing and I enjoy that kind of sound. If you're familiar with my album There, then you'll be familiar with me playing ukulele with some piano and strings in the background. But if you want to learn the piece and you don't want the backing, then just skip to the very end of the video. I've got the same playthrough, but just ukulele only, so your ears can just tune into the uke. Okie dokie, we need a high G ukulele. Grab that, and then we can kick off. So just before we kick off in the piece, I'm just going to have a little theory babble to talk about what's going on in the piece. Okay, so one of the main things that's going on in this piece is a technique called campanella. And this isn't a technique I'd ever heard of until I started playing the ukulele. Now, campanella is a really cool technique, and essentially it kind of helps us have this natural sustain and everything blurs into one. And what I mean by this, if I was just to play some notes from a D minor scale, so I play D, E, F, G, A, we can hear that each note cuts off before the next one starts. Now, as campanella, the aim is to basically have the previous note still bleed into the next note. Like that. Now, the biggest problem with that is that essentially, as soon as you strike a string, if you were to strike that string or move that note on that string straight after, you're killing that note. So you always have to find the next note on a different string. So for example, in today's piece, I'm playing, just to start with, G, A, B, and then C. G, A, B, C. So if I want to play it as campanella, the G and A are very easy. So I have a G here and I have an A here. Again, the notes have to be on basically a different string to the previous one. So I've played my G string, then I've played my A string. Now, usually I'd go for a B on the second fret of the A string. But because I just played the A string, that would cut off my sustain and ruin the campanella. So I need to find a B note somewhere else on the fretboard. Now, if you know your fretboard, it's easy peasy. It's 7th fret on the E string is also a B. Hear that? Exactly the same note. And so all that means is I can go G, A, and then play that B. And I'm playing on 3 separate strings, which means they can all sustain together and nothing gets interrupted. And that's essentially the heart of campanella. But I would say the biggest thing of campanella is really knowing the notes on your fretboard and where to locate them. Thankfully, on my Patreon and Four String Friend memberships, I have a lovely theory lesson on navigating your fretboard. It's super simple. It's one lesson all done with. So if that's something that you have no idea how to do and would like to learn, then check out this lovely card and it'll take you straight to the lesson. All right, enough theory babble. Let's go learn Fingerstyle First-day number 2. Okay, so for this piece, I recommend 2 different ways of tackling the right hand. The way that I'll be teaching it and talking about it is that my thumb will play the G and the C strings. I'll then use my index finger to pluck the E string, and I'll use my middle finger to pluck the A string. So that's thumb, thumb, index, and middle. Now, if you're brand new and feel that 3 fingers is just too much, then you can just use these 2. You can use your thumb, essentially, for the G and C strings, and then you can use your index finger for the A and E strings. I think in the long run, it's better learning the 3-finger method, because then essentially you've almost got 1 finger dedicated per string. There is a technique where we have 1 finger per string, and it's called Pima. So we use 4 fingers, but that's not a technique that I use. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not something I feel comfortable using. So for bar 1, on our left hand, we need to put our index finger on the 7th fret on the E string. Now we just need to make sure that we curl that finger because we need the open A string underneath. So just make sure you can pluck the E string, which is on the 7th fret, and the A string open, and that your index finger here isn't blocking that string. And the way that we do that is basically we engage this knuckle here, and we just have to really make sure that knuckle is vertical and we've got a nice crooked finger. Okay, so once that's in place, what we're going to do, we're going to pluck the G string with our thumb, and then pluck the A string with our middle finger, G, A. Following that, we need to pluck the E string with our index finger, and then the C string with our thumb. Now, rhythmically, we have a little break between these two. We're in eighth notes, so counting-wise, I'm going 1 and 2 and 3. So we're basically kind of going pluck, pluck, wait, pluck, pluck. Pluck, pluck, wait, pluck, pluck. And again, that would just be counted 1 and 2 and 3. And the idea is then all our bars add up to 4. So for counting eighth notes, we go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we just have a little while to let all that sound kind of sit there. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then we hit the next bar. Now for the next bar, we're going to start off exactly the same. We're going to pluck the G and A strings. And again, I'm plucking the G with my thumb and my middle finger is plucking that A string right there. On our left hand, we're going to go up to the 10th fret on the E string, and I'm going to use my ring finger for this note. And essentially on the E string, we're going to play 10, 10, and then 8. So it makes sense that you get both these fingers kind of on the fretboard at the same time. So I've got my index finger on the 8th fret, and then I've got my ring finger on the 10th. So I can play the 10, 10, and just remove my ring finger and play the 8, and I don't have to basically then put it on. So just make sure when we try and move up, you kind of keep that index finger down. So from bar 1, we're on fret 7. So what I mean is I'm going to play my G, A, and then I'm just going to almost slide my index finger up a fret, and then come to the ring finger on the 10. 1 and 2 and it's there. Right, so we need to pluck the E string, the 10, and straight after that, we're going to do a little pinch. So we're going to pluck the C string and E string together. And again, that's just my thumb that's plucking the C, and my middle finger, sorry, my index finger is plucking the E string. So you just pluck them together, and you should get that sound. So timing-wise, we end up going 1 and 2 and 3. And that little gap there, 1 and, that's where I'm using to then move my left hand up. 1 and move it left, and then I can get that note in. So it's a little bit more stress-free. So once we've done that, and this is from the bar, 1 and 2 and 3, we have one note left, and it's the 8th fret on the E string. And like I said, hopefully we should have our index finger already there. And we're just going to pluck that with our index finger on our right hand. So if I count the whole bar out, we end up going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you're plucking that last note on the beat of 4. Okay, so bar 2 again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now when we start bar 3, we actually need to pluck an open E string. So that means that our left hand is needed, index finger on the 5th fret of our A string. So we're just going to try and hop around there. Now again, this is back to the campanella thing, because technically we just plucked that note. That is the 10th fret on the E string. But I want to make sure that my notes blend in together, campanella style. So rather than play it there and interrupt myself in the flow, I'm just going to move it here so that it can all blend together. So you've actually got plenty of time just to move your index finger to the 5th fret on the A string. And then we're going to pluck the open E and the open G. So that's the E string with my index finger, and then the G with my thumb right there. Now this is going to be the same rhythm as our first bar. So we're going to go 1 and 2. Then we're going to pluck our A string with my middle finger, and then I'm going to pluck my thumb straight after. So if I count that out again, I go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So like I said, exactly the same rhythm as our first bar. One more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then we come to bar 4, and we have to do exactly the same thing that we just did for bar 3. So we literally go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and again. So I find that counting is important for this piece, essentially because we've got gaps between the notes. And whenever we have gaps in music, that's where a lot of us can fall down because we lose our rhythm. So just counting it out nice and slowly. If you can listen to it And if you can replicate it like a melody recall, then that's totally fine. You do that. But counting, if you really struggle to listen to me play it and play it back, and you're not sure about the timing, just try counting out aloud like I'm doing right now. Okay, so here comes our line 1 playthrough, okay? 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. So again, depending on how difficult, how easy you find that, just spend a little bit of time playing that first line, mainly just getting the rhythm, okay? Because like I said, that's really important for music. We don't want to just play the notes from the page. You want to play them exactly in rhythm. Otherwise, it sounds strange. Okay, so moving on to bar 5, it is actually exactly the same as bar 1. So that means our index finger needs to come back to the 7th fret on our E string. And we're going to play the same pattern before, which was we played G, A, rest, E, C. And again, counting wise, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now bar 6 is very similar to bar 2, but for our left hand we need to do something different. So before we had to go up to fret 10 with our ring finger. This time when we go to fret 10, I'm going to advise that we do it with our index finger instead. Before we played 10 to 8, and because I was going back, basically I want a higher finger up there. This time we're going 10 to 12. So I don't want to kind of use my ring finger and then try and slide that up like that. There's no reason why not to, but it's just more comfortable when we can switch between 2 fingers. I can use my ring finger for the 10 and then my index finger for the 10 and my ring finger for the 12. So rhythmically it should be the same. So we're going to play an open G, open A, you get that rest, and then we're going to move up to the 10th fret on the E string. Again, from the previous bar, you'll already be on the 7th fret, so your finger should already be down. It's just a matter of moving it up to that 10th fret. Okay, so we go 1 and 2, then we pluck our E string and pluck the C string and E string together as a pinch, just like before. So rhythmically, that ends up going 1 and 2 and 3. And then just like bar 2, we had a note on the beat of 4, and like I said, we're going to play that 12 on the E string, and I'm going to pluck that with my index finger. So the bar should sound like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Bar 7 is exactly the same as bar 3, so that means we need to get this index finger all the way from 10 to 5. And again, they're the same notes, but because of the campanella, I'm having to switch where I'm playing on the ukulele. So just as a reminder, then bar 3 and 7 are the same. So that means we have our 5th fret on the A string with our index finger. We're going to pluck E, G, A, C. And again, if I'm counting that, I'm going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now bar 8 is almost the same as this, but we just have to do a left hand change. So we're going to change from the 5th fret on our A string to the 2nd fret on our A string instead. Now once we arrive at that 2nd fret, we're going to play exactly the same right hand combination that we just did in the same rhythm. So we go E, G, A, C. And again, if I count that, that would be going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so that's our whole second line done. Here's the playthrough of the entire second line. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. Right, super. So that's our first theme of the piece. The next 2 lines move on to a completely different feeling theme. It's mainly involving lots of pinching and constant 8th notes this time. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump up to a C chord. Now this is a C chord on the 7th fret, so we're probably used to playing a C chord here on the 3rd fret, but actually if you play it on the 7th fret on the A string, that is also a C chord as well. It's no different, it's just a different higher note, but it's still a C chord. So if you ever need to change up your C chord and you're bored of playing that chord, just play it on the 7th fret instead, or play it on the 10th fret instead. They're all C chords. So we're going ring finger here for the 7th fret A string, and then the pattern that we're going to play is a pattern of 2. So first of all, we're going to pinch the G and A strings together. And again, I'm using my thumb and my middle finger to pinch those two. And that's going to be followed by a pluck of the C string with my thumb. So like I said, just a simple pattern of 2, pinch, and then pluck your C string. Now, again, maths, the bar needs to add up to 8 because we're playing 8th notes. That means we're doing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we're playing that pattern of 2 4 times in total. And for the whole next 2 lines, that is going to be our right hand pattern, is not going to change. All that's going to change is the left hand. So bar 9 will sound like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then when we come to bar 10, we're actually just going to move our ring finger down 2 frets. Now, you could just use your index finger, but we're going to use our ring finger as an anchor finger, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But basically, we're going to use our ring finger to move down 2 frets, so we should be on the 5th fret of the A string. And then we're going to play the same pinching pattern. So G and A pinch, followed by C. So that's for a whole bar, so we should go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so in bar 11 we come to a G6 chord. Now if you've never played a G6 chord but you've played a G chord, essentially if you play a G major chord but just remove your ring finger so you have the open E string, that is a G6 chord. He's a real beautiful variation of G major, and you can see it's quite easy to get from G major to G6 just by lifting up that finger. But in this piece, we're not going to play it with these 2 fingers like we would in the G. We're not going to use our index and our middle. Instead, we're going to use our middle finger for the C string, 2nd fret, and our ring finger for the 2nd fret, A string. Now, it seems weird to use a combination that we wouldn't usually use, but that's because on the A string, we've been using our ring finger. Then for the next chord, we used our ring finger. That means I can continue to use my ring finger on this string, so I don't have to move it. I can just kind of slide it down and then just add 1 single finger to the C string. It means that our chord changes are less messy, and also, it's just less stressful. So it might feel weird to start with playing a chord in a different way that you never played it, but it's really good to learn that. So we're going to try our G6 for bar 11. We're going to play the same pattern. So we're going to pinch G and A, followed by a single pluck of the C string. So we'll go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Bar 12 is very similar. We're just going to lose a finger on our left hand. So that ring finger, I just want you to lift off so you've actually got an open A string. And we're going to play the same pattern, shockingly. So we're going to pinch G and A to C, G and A to C, 3 and 4 and. So for a full playthrough of line 3, it goes like this: 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. Okay, so bar 13 is exactly the same as bar 9. So we have to go back again to the ring finger on the 7th fret of our A string. So once we're there, exactly the same, G and A to C. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now for bar 14, usually we went 2 frets lower to fret 5, but actually we're going to go 2 frets higher to fret 9 here. And it's still going to be the same pattern, so we're pinching G and A to C. And if you pluck those G and A strings together, and hear that sound, and you're like, ugh, that sounds weird. It's because essentially we're playing a G and an F sharp. Those two notes are a semitone apart, so when you play them together, we get a lovely thing called dissonance. It's kind of like a shaking sound. Whether you like that or not is completely subjective, so it depends on the genres of music you listen to, but I do love a bit of dissonance, so I'll try and use it whenever I can. So once we played that, down to bar 15, which is exactly the same as bar 11, so that means ring finger, keep it on the A string, zoom it all the way down to the 2nd fret, and then put your middle finger on the C string, 2nd fret. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then for bar 16, it's going to be very much like bar 12, but we're just going to finish a little bit earlier. So again, we lose our ring finger from our A string, and we pinch our G and A. Now we're just going to go 1 and 2 and 3, and finish on the 3 pinch there, which means we should go G, A, C, G, A, C, G, A. So count bar 16, we'll go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if we play the whole of line 4, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. And so then we have the final 2 lines of the piece, but actually, you already learnt them. Lines 5 and 6 are exactly the same as lines 1 and 2. So, line 5 should sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and. So like I said, exactly the same as line 1, and then our final line, line 6, is going to be exactly the same as line 2. So line 6 should sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3. And that's where we finish the piece. So again, spend time learning this just by taking it bar by bar, kind of getting used to the rhythm. Really concentrate on what your right hand's doing. What this whole series is about. I've tried to make it as minimalistic as possible on the left hand, so we can really concentrate on what's going on the right hand. Again, I mean plucking hand and fretting hand. I'm so sorry, left-handed people, so sorry. And again, you can listen to this piece without the backing at the very end of this video, so you can go listen to all of that if you don't want to hear it with the backing, so you can just hear the ukulele. Full playthrough on its own. Now do remember on YouTube you can also use your little settings wheel icon to slow down the video, so you can slow it down to 0.75% or 0.5% just to get it really slow, so you can listen to that and it'll be easier to hear. Now, when you purchase the PDF book from my website, you also get 3 MP3 playthroughs per track. So you get one at track tempo, a second playthrough that's 20% slower, and then another playthrough that's another 20% slower. So basically, they're just slowed down, and again, it's easier to listen to and learn. And there we go. That was Fingerstyle First-day piece number 2. So, did you enjoy that versus the first one? How did you find it? Again, like I said, these pieces are put in difficulty order, but the difficulty order from what I think is easiest to hardest. So if you found it more difficult, too difficult, or too easy or anything like that, I'm always all ears. So please let me know down in the comments, because I'd just like to know how you get on with the series. And again, just like anything practice-wise, I advise practicing these in little tiny bursts. So don't sit there and try and play the whole piece brand new, because it'll be hard to get into your muscle memory. Just practice a bar at a time, take it through, practice, 5 minutes a day, a little bit longer if you can, and you'll be playing it perfectly in no time. Thanks again for joining me today. Fingerstyle First-day piece number 3 will be out in 2 weeks. If you are impatient, remember you can get access to all 10 pieces already all scored out and tabbed in the book from my website. But if not, I'll always be teaching them here every 2 weeks for $0. Remember to like, subscribe, all the usual bullshit. Have a great week. See you later.